الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خاتم النبيين محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم. محمد سيد الكونين والثقلين والفريقين من عرب ومن عجم، هو الحبيب الذي ترجى شفاعته لكل هول من الأهوال مقتحم. فإن من جودك الدنيا وضرتها ومن علومك علم اللوح والقلم. بشرى لنا معشر الإسلام إن لنا من العنايات ركنا غير منهدم. يا رب صل على محمد وعلى ساداتنا آله وصحبه الكرام. محمد أشرف الأعراب والعجم، محمد خير من يمشي على قدم. محمد ذكره روح لأنفسنا، محمد شكره فرض على الأمم. محمد خير خلق الله من مضر، محمد خير رسل الله كلهم. محمد يوم بعث الناس شافعنا، محمد نوره الهادي من الظلم. محمد باسط المعروف جامعه، محمد صاحب الإحسان والكرم. محمد قائم لله ذو همم، محمد خاتم للرسل كلهم. صلوا على رسولنا Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Once again, alhamdulillah, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala has given us the permission to be present in this noble house, the Bayt of Allah, on this day of Jum'ah, Yawm al-Jum'ah, which is Sayyid al-Ayam. And we begin by sending countless and infinite salutations and peace upon our final Prophet Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, who is the final Prophet of Allah and the best of all creation, and our intercessor on the Day of Judgment. This part of a hadith of Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. مثل المؤمنين في تودهم وتراحمهم وتعاطفهم مثل الجسد. That the Muslims, the believers, in terms of their compassion to one another, in terms of their mercy to one another, and in terms of their link to one another, is like the example of the body. That if one part of the body feels pain, it becomes hurt, the entire body responds with fever and sleeplessness. Also, Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam mentioned in the summary that none of you can truly be true believers until you love for your brother what you love for yourself. This is mentioned in the Arba'in of Imam Junaid radiallahu ta'ala anhu as well. Also, Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in the summary mentioned Al-Muslimu man salim al-Muslimuna min lisanihi wa yadihi. That the Muslim is the one who the other Muslims are safe from his tongue and from his hand. Looking at these blessed ahadith of our final Prophet Sayyidina Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, we learn the importance of being together as an ummah. We learn the importance of showing mercy to one another. We learn the importance of being together. And in this day and age, whereby we see a lot of selfishness, a lot of greed, a lot of loving one's own self and not worrying about others, it is very important that we begin to look at our own states once again. Inshallah, if we want to be a successful ummah again, we must come back together and we must start loving each other once again. We must come back together and start supporting each other once again. The izzat of a Muslim is something which is very great in Islam. In a summary, Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, O Kaaba, your azmah is undoubtedly very great, but the izzah, the respect of a Muslim is even greater than you. So my dear son brothers, we must come back to being together once again. But bearing in mind that being together, this doesn't mean uniting upon falsehood. This doesn't mean uniting upon that which is wrong in the name of being together. Being together means uniting upon the haqq. Being together means being unified and being united upon the truth, upon the Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah. This is what true unity is, my dear brothers. Unity will not be valid, it will not be correct in the sense of uniting upon falsehood. Especially in terms of Aqidah. Let me give you an example. That say, many Muslims, they were to gather in a place of gambling or a place where haram activities take place. Then say if one Muslim, one pious Muslim, he says, I don't want to go there because there's haram activities going on. But the majority of Muslims are going to these places. This is an aqli example, a logical example. So if these Muslims who are doing haram, they are in these places doing sins, if they are inviting others to come and join them, it will not be acceptable in the name of unity for that Muslim to go and commit haram with them. It will not be acceptable for that Muslim, that pious Muslim, under the name of being together, to go to these haram places and gamble with them, to go and do sins with them. Rather, they must, the ones doing haram, they must unite upon the haqq, they must unite upon the truth, and they must leave their sins. Similarly, when we say we must be united, we must be together, then we must unite upon the haqq. We must unite upon the true aqidah, which is the aqidah of the Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah. Also, Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, our beloved final Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, they also encouraged us to always be together as an ummah, to be together, to be loving to one another. We must show mercy to one another. The Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, in a summary, that Allah Almighty, He shows mercy to the one who shows mercy Himself. That show mercy to the people of the earth, the Rabb of the skies, He will show mercy upon you. All of us, we all want mercy from Allah wa ta'ala. One of the sifat, one of the names of Allah wa ta'ala is Ar-Rahman, the most merciful. Ar-Rahim, the most compassionate. And these words, these sifat, these names of Allah wa ta'ala, the root letters of these names are Ra, Mim, Rahma, coming from mercy. All of us, we want the mercy of Allah wa ta'ala. And Allah Almighty, He has shown us how to attain His mercy. As I mentioned, the hadith of Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, show mercy upon the people of the earth, the Rabb of the skies will show mercy upon you. Also there's a hadith mentioned in Muslim Imam Ahmad, that Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said in a summary, that show mercy, you will be shown mercy. And forgive, you will be forgiven. This is very important, my dear brothers. Our akhlaq, our kirdar, our a'mal, with the khalq, with the creation of Allah, this is very important, my dear brothers. Another name for this is huquq al-ibad. The huquq, the rights of the ibad, of the slaves of Allah wa ta'ala. This is very important, my dear brothers, and this is very sensitive. For example, if someone steals something from another Muslim, if a Muslim, he steals something from another Muslim, then it is not kafi, it is not only enough only to do tawbah to Allah wa ta'ala. He has to do tawbah to Allah Azza wa Jalla. But it is not enough for him to only do tawbah to Allah wa ta'ala and keep that wealth that he kept. Rather, he will have to repay and give that wealth back to that person that he stole from. So this becomes very, very difficult. Say for example, someone, he stole hundreds and thousands of pounds from someone. Then it will be very difficult for him to pay that back, especially if he lost that money or if he doesn't have that money with him anymore. But he will still have to repay this in the dunya. So this becomes very, very difficult. So from the beginning, my dear son brothers, we must be very careful how we conduct ourselves regarding the huquq al-ibad. Also regarding our relations, our character with the Ummah of Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. that Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi wa sallam said in the summary, Al-birru husnul khuluqi, that the piety is the beauty of the character. If you want to be pious, if you want to be from the abrar is the jam'ah, is the plural of the word bir, people who do goodness. If you want to be from the people who indillah, we do goodness, then we must show the beauty of the character. We must be kind to one another. We must be merciful to one another. We must be smiling to one another. Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam said that do not take any good deed as small, even if it is to smile in the face of your brother, subhanAllah. Also Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam said that to smile in the face of your akhi, to smile in the face of your brother, this is a sadaqah. This is a charity for you, to smile in the face of your akhi. So we must show this beautiful character. We must show this mercy, as I mentioned, that Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, مَثَلُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ فِي تَوَدِّهِمْ وَتَرَاحُمِهِمْ وَتَعَاطُفِهِمْ مَثَلُ الْجَسَدِ. That the example of the believers in terms of their compassion, in terms of their mercy to one another, and in terms of their link to one another, is like the example of the body. Whenever a Muslim feels pain, we should feel this pain as well. Whenever a Muslim is going through a difficulty, we should feel this difficulty as well. We should feel happiness in our hearts that a Muslim is suffering. What tends to happen? What happens to people? We know this happens. That if sometimes a Muslim, he becomes aware that another Muslim, he is undergoing a difficulty, or he has suffered a difficulty, then some people's hearts, they begin to feel happiness. They begin to feel a sense of joy in their hearts, that person is lost out, that person, he's suffering. Some Muslims, they feel happiness in this, because there may be some personal conflict, there may be some jealousy there. But this should not be the case, brothers. A true Muslim, a Kamil Muslim, someone who is perfect in his iman, he will feel the pain of another Muslim. And this is very important when we look at what's happening today in Razvia Masjid, brothers. That when we see their difficulties, when we see their sufferings, we should also feel their pains. How many times have we looked at a video or a sense or a piece of information regarding the atrocities, the sufferings in Gaza, and how many times have we stopped and cried? How many times have we shed some tears? What happens nowadays? People, they're flicking through TikTok, they're flicking through these videos, they're flicking through different videos, and sometimes they're coming across ajib or gharib videos. Sometimes videos of people dancing and people, doing strange things, and they're looking at these things and they're laughing. But when it comes to the images of Gaza, when it comes to the images and videos of Gaza, they just look at it for a few moments and flick past. A few moments later, they completely forgot what they looked at. They'll completely forget what they just witnessed, what they just saw. But how many times have you stopped at one of these videos? How many times have you stopped at one of these images, and by yourself in your room, or by yourself alone, how many times have you shed tears, and you cried, and picked your hands up in the court of Allah wa ta'ala, and made dua to Allah Azza wa Jal, that, oh Allah, support these people, Ya Allah, relieve their suffering. How many times has this happened? But on the contrary, how many times have you stopped on these videos of people dancing, people doing haram actions, and laughed, and find amusement in these things? If we do a comparison between these two things, you feel these la'ib and long videos, these useless videos. We'll spend more time laughing at these videos and enjoying these videos, as opposed to feeling the pain of the ummah, as opposed to stopping and making dua for the people suffering. Whereby it should be the other way around. We should be stopping and making dua for these people suffering. Also, the brothers and sisters in Burma, they are going through a very, very difficult time. But we see no change. We see no empathy for them. We live in a time where people feel no sympathy for them. They're just waiting for the quickest time that the Imam will stop his speech, and then I can go back to my life, I can go back to my dunya, and I can forget about what was spoken about in the speech. But this should not be the case, my dear brothers. When we come to Jum'ah, when we come to these gatherings, then we should take something away. We should try to make something sit in our hearts. And as I mentioned, Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam said, مَثَلُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ فِي تَوَدِّهِمْ وَتَرَاحُمِهِمْ مَثَلُ الْجَسَدِ. مَثَلُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ فِي تَوَدِّهِمْ in their compassion for one another. وَتَرَاحُمِهِمْ in their mercy for one another. وَتَعَاطُفِهِمْ in their link to one another. مَثَلُ الْجَسَدِ is like the example of the body. That if one part of the body becomes hurt, the entire body feels the pain and responds with sleeplessness and fever. We must be together again, my dear brothers. Like I said, we must unite upon the haqq, the Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah. And also, as I was mentioning, in our Islam, in our beautiful religion, then we have been emphasized to show beautiful character. As I mentioned, the hadith, Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, Al-birru husnul khuluqi, that the piety is the beauty of the character. Also, Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi wa sallam said that the most afdal deeds, the best deed after the fara'id, the best deed, the most afdal deed after completing the fara'id is to put happiness into the heart of another Muslim, subhanAllah. To put happiness into the heart of another Muslim, this is the most afdal deed after completing the fara'id, the obligatory actions given to us by Allah wa ta'ala. We must be people who are putting happiness into the other hearts of the other Muslims. We must be people who show mercy to the other Muslims in any way that we can. Whether it be through a smile, whether it be through a good word, a qawl, a beautiful qawl, whether it be through a good action, whether it be through our financial support, whether we are giving financial support to the other Muslims, whether we are feeding the Muslims, then we should be people of raham, supporting the Muslims. We will get great ajr from Allah wa ta'ala. Also Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said in the summary alayhi salatu wa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that in Ramadan, if someone feeds another Muslim a meal so that his stomach becomes full, then he will drink from my pond on the Day of Judgment. My Kawthar, he will drink from the Kawthar on the Day of Judgment. And Allah Almighty will never make him feel thirsty again, and he will enter into heaven. He will enter into heaven, he will never feel thirsty again. This is the virtue of feeding a Muslim's tummy to his extent, a stomach full in the month of Ramadan. There are many fadail of serving the Ummah. Also Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam said that khayrun nasi man yanfa'un nas. Khayrun nasi man yanfa'un nas. That the best of all the people is the one who benefits the people. He gives nafa'a to the people. Yanfa'un nas. Khayrun nasi, the best of the people. Khayrun nasi man yanfa'un nas, is the one who benefits the people. Now look at yourself, do muhasabah of yourself. Muhasabah meaning accountability, self-accountability. Do accountability of yourself. How much am I benefiting the Ummah of Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam? How much am I providing food to them? How much am I providing financial support to them? How much am I teaching the Ummah al-Islam? How much am I being kind to them, putting happiness into the hearts of the Ummah of Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam? There was a very beautiful hadith that the ulama mentioned. That Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam said to our mother, Sayyidatuna Aisha Siddiqa Tayyiba Tahira Zahida Abida Muftiya radiyallahu ta'ala anha, that, O Aisha, sal, ask me. The Sayyidah Aisha, in a summary, she humbly replied that, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, through you we attained the ma'rifah of Allah. We know that Allah exists. We attained Allah from you. What more is there to ask from you, O beloved sallallahu alayhi wa sallam? And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the most generous of all mankind, the qasim of the ni'matullah, as Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, إِنَّمَا أَنَا قَاسِمٌ وَاللَّهُ يُعْطِي. That indeed I am the distributor. Indeed only I am the distributor. إِنَّمَا أَنَا قَاسِمٌ. Indeed only I am the distributor. وَاللَّهُ يُعْطِي. And Allah is the one who provides. He is the giver of rizq. He is the giver of the ni'mah. He is the giver of the rahmah of Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. So Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, again, he said to Sayyidah Aisha, that, O Aisha, in the summary, O Aisha, ask, sal. Vaha kya judo karam hai shahibata hatera. Nahi sunta hi nahi mangene wala tera. That, how great is your generosity, O the king of Batha, of Makkah, that your beggar, the one who asks from you, he never hears the word no from you. Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam again says, to say that Aisha, He said, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, Sal. So then Sayyidah Aisha, she took a moment and she thought, and she said, "Oh beloved Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, if you give me permission, I will go and ask my father Abu Bakr about what to ask from him, sallallahu alayhi wasallam." So then Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam gave permission to Sayyidah Aisha to go and ask Sayyiduna Abu Bakr as-Siddiq about what to ask Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam for. Then when Sayyidatuna Aisha radiallahu anha, when she presented herself to Sayyiduna Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu, Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu, look at his question, look at what he asked for. He said to Sayyidah Aisha that, "Oh my daughter, humbly ask Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam that when you went on the Laylatul Mi'raj, the night of Mi'raj, when there was only Allah and there was only you, there was only Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, there was only Allah. There was nothing else. There was no makan, there was no jahid, there was no up, there was no down, there was no left, there was no right, there was no other khalq of Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. There was only Rasulullah and there was only Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. Then tell us one of the asrar that took place there. Tell us one of the things that was said there at that time. Then Sayyidah Aisha radiallahu anha, she went back to Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and she humbly asked that, "Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, my father Abu Bakr, he asked that please tell us one of the things that happened when there was only you and only Allah on the Laylatul Mi'raj." Then Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in summary said, when there was only me and only Allah on the Laylatul Mi'raj, then Allah Almighty said to me that, "Oh beloved, if anyone in your ummah, in any way that he can, if he joins the heart of a Muslim, if he mends the heart of a Muslim, then I will forgive him for all of his previous sins. I will forgive him for all of his coming sins, and I will enter him into Jannah without accountability." Subhanallah. Then Sayyidah Aisha, she became very happy at this time, and she went back to Sayyiduna Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, the first caliph, the most afdal of the khulafa, radiallahu ta'ala. Then Sayyidah Aisha radiallahu anha, she said that, "Oh my father, Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam told us that Allah Almighty said that if anyone mends the heart of a Muslim in any way that he can, not even through financial means, any way that he can, if he mends the heart of a Muslim, then Allah Almighty says that He will forgive him for all of his previous sins. He will forgive him for all of his coming sins, and He will enter him into Jannah without accountability." Then upon hearing this, Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu began to cry. And Sayyidah Aisha, she said, "Oh my father, this is a time for us to be happy. Please tell us why you're crying. Please tell me why you're crying." And Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu, he said, "This is the reward for someone who mends the heart of a Muslim. Then imagine the punishment for the one who breaks the heart of the Muslim." So my dear Islamic brothers, the heart of the Muslim is very important, it's very muqaddas. We must worry about the heart of the Muslims, their feelings. We shouldn't go around breaking people's hearts. We shouldn't go around being very hard upon other Muslims. We shouldn't be very rude to them. We should show mercy to them. As I mentioned, the hadith, part of the hadith of Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, مَثَلُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ فِي تَوَدِّهِمْ وَتَرَاحُمِهِمْ وَتَعَاطُفِهِمْ مَثَلُ الْجَسَدِ, that the example of the believers in their compassion, in their mercy, and in their link to one another is like the example of the body. We must come back together in mercy and show mercy to one another, my dear Islamic brothers. As I mentioned, that Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said that show mercy to the people in the ard, in the earth, the Rabb of the skies will show mercy upon you. We need to show mercy to one another. And as I mentioned before we finish, I already said, but I'll say again, that Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, "Do not take any deed as small, even if it is to smile in the face of your brother." We must show a smiling face. Be very kind to one another. There's no haraj in this world to be kind to someone. There's nothing weak in you if you're very nice to someone. Only your izzat will increase. Rasulullah alayhi sallam said, "Man tawadda'a lillahi rafa'allahu. Rafa'ahu Allah." That whoever shows mercy, whoever shows ajizi for Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, whoever lowers himself for Allah tabaraka, he shows ajizi, he lowers himself for Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, Allah Almighty will give him bulandi. Allah Almighty will raise him. Subhanallah. Allah Ta'ala has raised that person, that Muslim. So we must come back to the way of mercy and be kind to one another. Say salam, even if you don't know a Muslim, even if you don't know him, but you make eye contact with him, you see him, say salam to him. Rasulullah ﷺ told us to spread salam. So we need to show mercy. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك وصلى الله على حبيبنا محمد.